Hello. Alright, back-to-back sleepies, but this is going to be a quick video. Last section, questions 110 to 114. Okay, so Carlo has 350 in a savings account that earns 5% simple interest. Okay, keyword. How much will he have in the account after 1 year if no money is withdrawn? Okay, so this topic is talking about simple interest, and there's this other thing called compound interest. Simple interest is simple in that basically for depositing money into a bank, the bank will reward you interest, right? For using that by storing that money within the bank. And it's simple in that it rewards you based off of the principal. And the principal is just like a fancy way of saying how much you put in. So this person, Carlos, put in this much. So this is the principal. Okay. I want you to Google this topic, but you'll see there's a formula for it. It's called I is equal to PRT. Okay, and it's just saying that the simple interest accumulated is just the product of the principal times the annual rate. This as a decimal. So here they gave you the rate, the interest rate is 5%. So as a decimal, that's 0.05, and T is the number of years. Okay, so then they're asking you for the amount in the account after 1 year. So if you're just looking at the choices and you didn't remember this topic or you didn't learn it yet, right? It says that they didn't take out the money. Carlos didn't take out any money, so that means that the choice should be something that's greater than 350, right? So it cannot be E and it cannot be F. It's got to be one of these two. And then here you can use probability guess and you have like a 50-50 chance of doing it, okay? You could also use your intuition and say like, oh, you're only getting 5% in a year, right? So then if you look at this number H, 525, that's a lot. That's not 5% compared to the 350, okay? So you could make an even stronger educated guess and say this is G. The answer is G, okay? But let's get there correctly without using process of elimination and yeah, these other test-taking tricks, okay? So let's just use the formula here. So the interest rate is a PRT. Principal is 350. The rate is 5%. Change that into a decimal. Move the decimal 2 spaces to the left. So it's going to be 0.05. And then T is equal to 1, right? Because they're asking you for the end of 1 year. So it's that 1 you don't have to put because anything times 1 is itself. So that means the answer is just going to be this 350, 0.08, I mean 0.05 plus the original, right? Because they're asking for the amount in the account, not just the interest that accumulated, right? So then that's going to be 350. Okay, so there's a few ways of doing this. Like you could factor this right now, but I'm not going to do that. Let me find out what the interest is first. Okay, so this 350. Okay, watch this. This is 5%, right? 1% of a number is just you divide that number by 100. So that's 2 shifts in the decimal places. So that's going to be 3.5 for 1%. So $3.50 is 1%. So 5% will be times 5 that. That's a nice trick, okay? So if you do 3.5 times 5, that's going to be 5 to 17.5. That's the interest, and you add that to this, that's going to be 367.50. So that's the answer, okay? This is an interesting topic, also compound interest. I wanted to make a video on this and deriving the formulas, but hopefully the stuff that I'm saying is making sense, and maybe you could try deriving the formula before I do it, all right? Beat me to it. Okay, 111. Probability of an event occurring is 0.05. What is the chance that the event will occur? Okay, so probability is referring to percentages, right? So the probability is a number from between 0 to 1 if you're looking at as a decimal, or from 0% to 100%. Okay, the chance that the event will occur, so they're asking you how likely it is, and if it's 100%, we say it's a guaranteed, right? So this question is asking you basically to change this decimal 0.05 into the percent. Well, let's piggyback off of the previous question because we said 0.05 was equivalent to 5%. So that means this is 5%. Okay, now look at that probability of 5%. Is it closer to 0 or closer to 100%? It's closer to 0%. So that means that it's going to be unlikely. Impossible means 0%. And guaranteed is 100%. Okay? Likely is more than halfway. Halfway is 50%. So more than likely, it'd be over 50. Equally likely is 50%. So neither likely nor unlikely is, I think that's what they mean by 50%, but yeah. All right, so the answer choice is going to be unlikely, B. Okay, 112. Based on the relationship between the number of cups of red paint and the number of cups of blue paint, what is the value of y? And the table below shows the number of cups of red paint and blue paint used to make a purple paint mixture. So they're giving you a recipe here. So how do you read this recipe? Well, they're saying that for 1 cup of red paint, I need to make 1.5 cups of blue paint. Okay? And then let's look for 4. Well, if it's a recipe, then it should be proportional, right? Recipes are like intrinsically proportional, or they should be, right? So all I really need is this, and then these other things are kind of like extra clues. So if I have 1 cup of red paint, I need 1.5, so that's the rule. So what if I had 4 times that amount? Then that means I should multiply this by 4, right? So I made a video on this too about like linear functions. It's tied to that, right? So it's going to be 4 times 1.5, which is indeed 6. Okay. Now here, 1 to 11. So if I have this 1 to 11, that's 11 times. So that means I should have 11 times the amount of 1.5. Okay. So you should do that. That's one way of doing it. But here's another way of doing this. Well, look at the ratio. If I told you that the recipe is intrinsically or inherently proportional, right? So there's this thing going on, like y is equal to kx, and there's a constant when you divide, right? Like the y over the x, and this has got to be a constant. So if I do 1.5 divided by 1, that's 1.5. If I do 6 divided by 4, that's 1.5. Then it's going to be something, y divided by something, 11, is got to equal 1.5. So this is another way of doing this, okay? And that constant is k, okay? So then y, we just do this, we're just going to get back at this same math problem, 11 times 1.5. And if you did that, that's like saying, let's do some tricks. Since I have only a few questions, I'm going to take my sweet time with this. So it's 11 times 1 is 11, and then half of 11, so that's going to be 5.5, and you add those two, and that is going to be 16.5, which is G. Yay, last page. Okay, so the number line above, what is the distance in units between what? So be careful with this, between the midpoint of PQ and the midpoint of QR. Okay, so we need to find out these two things in parentheses. Okay, so the first thing says the midpoint of PQ. So let me look at the midpoint. So that's literally the middle point that splits that line segment into 2 equal halves. If you were not paying attention to the numbers, right, then you can just kind of wing it, right? Because they have like these numbers here. You can say, okay, 1, 2, so there's 2 here. So it looks like this has got to be the middle. And that is indeed the middle. If you want to precisely find it using the number lines and the numbers, I don't know how complicated this exam would make it, but you can just find the average of the 2 endpoints. You should try that too. Okay? But anyways, we know that this is going to be the middle point, one of them. So this is for this piece. And now the midpoint of QR, so from 1 to 7, you could use the averaging trick, the 1 plus 7, and divide by that by 2. It's going to be 4. Right? Or you could just wing it like this, and you see 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Okay? And that's okay. So it's going to be here. Okay? So now you have to find the distance. This is the goal. Between these two places. So you got to find out how long this is. Okay? And you could do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it's got to be choice C. Now let's just double check. That number is -1, and to 4, how far is this? That is indeed 5. Okay, last question. Okay, there's more constant proportionality. An ice cream shop sells 16 cups of ice cream for $48 and 4 cups for $12. There is a proportional relationship between the number of cups of ice cream and the cost. So that means, once again, y is equal to kx. There's 2 variables here, right? But then they're saying that there's like a constant, right? So when you do the ratio y over x, it's got to equal to a constant. Okay, now they're asking you for that constant k. Okay, now to do this, just to get the answer, just plug it into the formula, okay? But if you want to make sense of this stuff, okay, which is, I think, more important, you just think about this. So an ice cream shop sells 16 cups of ice cream for $48. So that means I could think about, usually they'll think about price, or like how much you pay as the output, which is the y, as a function of whatever you're buying, which in this case is ice cream, the number of cups. Okay, so if you were to go by that path, then I can create a ratio between the money over the cups. So I could say it's $48 over 16 cups. Okay, and now if I wanted to find K, all I gotta do is just simplify this, right? Because this question is very similar to this, is it not? It's like the same concept, okay, and some other questions that we went over. So we just gotta simplify this fraction. I know 16 goes into both 16 and 48, so then that becomes, the top becomes $3 over 1 cup. So that means that the answer should be anything that represents this, $3 per 1 cup. It's gotta be F. Okay, but now here's another exercise. You technically did not have to make the price the output, the y. You could have done it the other way, okay? But then that would mean that the ratio would look a little different. You would be doing cups per dollar, right? And now my exercise for you, what I would want you to do when you do that, you're going to get a different slope here, okay? But then try to find the equivalent ratio when you do the cups per dollar and you make the dollar a whole amount, okay? And my hint to you is like either multiply or divide the top and bottom by the same amount. But yeah. All right, so I mean that's it, okay? We're finished, and yeah, let me think some more about what I want to do, or maybe I'll just go chill for a bit while I work on my other project. But yeah, good luck, and see you soon. Bye.